everyone. This is Man Alone. Welcome to my solo role-playing game YouTube channel. Started in 1881 by my great-great-grandfather um, Petrov. And originally, the first episode of this, back in old 81, as they said, was filmed on a hickory camera in a log cabin in upstate New Prussia, which was what Ohio was called at the time. And boy, I think about not only the legacy of that, the responsibility of that, but I also think about those digs, that log cabin, and I think, is it still there? Because one of my favorite things to do, and I promise I'm not wealthy when I say this. This is going to sound like something a wealthy person says, but I love taking a retreat. And you might have a reaction to that. You might be a busybody. You might say, take a retreat. I wish. I barely have time to scrub my galoshes. Right. I understand. Or some of you might think that that's sort of a namby-pamby kind of thing, right? A retreat, come on. The only thing I've ever done for a retreat is in high school. I had to go on some religious retreat where I just tried to find a place to smoke cigarettes where I didn't get caught by Mr. Busterman. Fine. You don't need to go to a log cabin to have a retreat. You don't need to stay overnight anywhere. I like to do that once a year. I like to do it by myself. And sometimes I will get like an Airbnb, like an hour away. Sometimes I will just last year, one of my friends was on vacation at the time. I asked them if I could just spend 48 hours in their house, and that's where I did it, right? And the purpose, why I do that, is to spend time with myself, which is pretty unimpressive reason, I would say. I wish there was a more elaborate, elegant way of saying that. But when we're talking about things like the self and the relationship with the self, the truth is that it's best not to dress it up. Like, it's best to just talk about exactly what it is. And that's exactly what I would do. I would spend time with myself. And I'll talk a little bit about why it's important that I do this, and how it's related to solo role-playing. So if you did have a reaction to that, if you think that's ridiculous, if you think you're too busy for that, if you think that's very trite, that is fine. You are free to go enjoy buying your next 63 Funko Pop bobbleheads and not shaving your neck. Or if you're a person that is, I'm too busy, or that's not a good use of my time. I just think it's every once in a while important for me to do a public service announcement, because I think a lot of people have forgotten that there is a place between euphoria and horror, even though Western culture right now does not want you to explore that terrain. We are either supposed to be in a place of ecstasy, total abandonment of responsibilities to anything or anyone, a total indulgence of whim, and indulgence in every sort of pleasure imaginable, and whatever you want to do is obviously right and good because, hey, you want to do it, and the self isn't wrong unless the wrong self is there. And then on the other hand, it's like, well, if you're not doing that, if you're not in one of these sort of like explosions of joy, then you should be at home fretting or concerned or ruminating and perseverating about all the terrible things going on. And how could you be enjoying yourself when everything is so bad? yes, there's a lot of messed up stuff going on in the world. Okay, and there's always been that. There's always going to be that. We're not going to be the ones that figure it out. We try to do good things, try to avoid bad things, take care of each other, especially people who are vulnerable and can't take care of themselves. But other than that, you have to understand that your timeline is limited. And when you're on your deathbed, I find I've never died, so I don't have experience of this, but I find it unlikely that when I'm dying, I'm going to say, you know what, it was a tough life, but at least I posted a lot about things I was mad about. At least I unearthed some, let's just say, disturbing statements by an opera singer from Sweden in 1865. A lot of people really like what she did in the opera, but how about these statements that I unearthed? Hey, St. Peter, incoming. Just so you know, I've got the receipts to show you how good of a person I am. I don't think I'm going to feel that way. I think I'm going to hope that I helped people, that I was kind, that I made room for other people, and that I um, created stuff that I could share with others. Hope I wasn't too greedy, didn't keep too much for myself. Hope that I showed people how to take care of other people by the way that I took care of them. That I was trustworthy, honest, loyal, that I was a good friend. That's what I think. I think that I'm going to be thinking about those kinds of things. And so, because the tractor beam pull of this other stuff is so strong, I've come to see that I really do have to. I don't have to do this all the time. Obviously, I'm not constantly like fleeing to the hills. But I do find that at least once a year, I need to remove myself from it and sit with myself. And when I first started doing this, it was a long time ago. I was not in a good place. I referred to this as the suffer box. I have to go to the suffer box. And I would call it that because whatever I was addicted to at the time, whatever, I'd be stressed because she's not texting me back, or she doesn't want to be with me. I'm rejected, or I have no talent. They don't want me to work for them, or I'm so ugly or stupid, or I'm no good. I'm there's something wrong with me, right? I had so much of these feelings that I would do anything to avoid them, such that when I went on my first retreat, I called it the suffer box because it honestly felt like I was in this. Oops, sorry. I was in a box, I was stuck in there, and I would writhe. I mean, I would truly writhe from the pain I felt. Uh, the pain of all of these things that I had been feeling that came rushing back in. Now, I'm not recommending the suffer box approach because I think there's a lot better ways that you can confront those things with people that care about you and can help you guide through it, so you don't have to do it on your own. But it was about 6 or 7 years ago now that the jig was up, so to speak. Like my habits, my addictions, my ways of interacting with the world, with treating people, were no longer avoidable. Like there was no lying I could do to anyone else. I couldn't do any squirming out of things. I couldn't do any denial. And most importantly, I could not lie and deny it to myself anymore. And out of desperation, I went to the suffer box. And side note, I do not refer to it that way anymore. But I would go and I would separate myself. And this was where I first encountered this thing within me that eventually became my love of sort of gaming and writing and role playing and things like that. Because the downside of having that confrontation with yourself is you have to face yourself, and that is terrifying. There's nothing scarier. The upside of that, are myriad. First of all, you live. You definitely live. Second of all, once you stop lying to yourself about these like bad things that you do or bad things you think you are, you also stop lying to yourself about what you want and what you enjoy and what you hope for, right? And so up until that point, I was somebody who demanded in so many ways that I be seen as smarter than everybody else and quicker than everybody else and more accomplished than everybody else. And it didn't matter if none of those things were true. I had to be seen that way automatically. And if people didn't automatically see me that way, then they had messed up, and I would either hurt them or hurt myself. Now, I was not a person that physically hurt anybody, but I would, maybe I would say something that was hurtful, or I would, do all these little pathetic little social strategies to take out our petty little revenges on people, or, more commonly, I would take it out on myself, right? I would treat my body terribly. I would hurt myself. I would bring myself to the limit. I would put substances in my body, etc. And so I pushed out all those feelings because I had work to do. And that work was to maintain the Man Alone show. I had to keep it going. And so that guy really was so educated and was just read so much and knew so much about philosophy and like life. It didn't matter that I was like 27 and I didn't know shit. I would just be like, oh, I've wrestled with the big questions. Have you ever heard of a little fella named Kierkegaard? Well, I've read so much of his Wikipedia page and all this stuff. I had to be seen that way. And because of that, I had to do these behaviors that somebody who was very smart and intellectual, and I had to do all these behaviors of that person. So I had to slog through these, Jacques Derrida books, and I had to look up these, esoteric texts and watch a bunch of silent movies, and I had to hate certain things that everybody else liked, and I had to do all these things that some other guy liked, some other made-up guy that I wanted to be perceived as. I would do what they liked. And to me, at that time, this other guy, who was not me, but was me, doing something like playing a tabletop role-playing game was a waste of time, but not nearly as a waste of time as playing a solo tabletop role-playing game, right? Because by doing that, you are doing nothing for the world. You're doing nothing to grow your intellect, to increase your understanding of things. You are just running in a circle is what I thought it was, right? And so when I finally pushed that all away and I allowed the truth to come in, again, painful, but also started realizing I can like things that I like again. Because, my habits and stuff had gotten bad to the point that like the people who used to be around me didn't want to be around me anymore. And so I was so lonely and so vulnerable that like emotionally vulnerable that I just had to do something. And it didn't matter anymore because nobody cared what I did. I'd alienated everybody. And so I was like, what do I want to do? Like, nobody cares if I read Kierkegaard anymore, right? Nobody cares if I've read Infinite Jest cover to cover. They don't care. There's no one to brag about that to. Side note, nobody cared when I did brag about it, but I was just like, okay, so what do you want to do? And you know what? I had no idea. For such a long time, I had no freaking clue what I wanted to do because I was so alienated from myself. I was so alienated from my internal sensors that I no longer had any idea what I liked and what I didn't like. What I liked was not feeling. What I liked was substances. What I liked was positive feedback I would get for performing this role. I did not um, I did not have anything that I did to be happy. I only had things that I did to avoid pain, and that pain was now unavoidable. And so part of cultivating a better answer for what I wanted to do, which eventually led me to this, um, was taking this intentional time. And one of the last year, I revisited this book that was very important to me. If you have not seen this before, this is My Struggle by Karl Ove Knausgaard, and this is book one. And I understand that there's another book that has a translation of this title that is not a good book. That has nothing to do with this book. But Karl Ove Knausgaard wrote these books that are very polarizing because on one hand, a lot of people really, really love them. I am one of those people. I should just say that up front. A lot of people cannot imagine a worse use of your time than reading a book series that is, and this is what this book series is about. This book series is about Karl Ove Knausgaard. It is him writing down everything he can about his life. Okay. And so right there, you're going to feel a certain way about that. What I like about this book is this is a sort of a weird genre, right? It's an autobiography, but it's weird. And if you read it, you'll see that it's weird. There's something different about it. And I've once seen it referred to, I really like this, as a sort of micro genre called somatic nearness, right? Nearness to the body, nearness to the experience of the body. And what this means is that this book series, is Knausgaard's attempt to show the reader what it feels like to be Karl Ove Knausgaard. Again, you might say, who the hell cares? I would rather the experience of being whoever, like who I am, right? I understand. It is obviously impossible to know what it's like to be Karl Ove Knausgaard, but he tries as best he can to show you not only what the world looks like through his eyes, like at times literally the perceptions, the smells, the taste, the touch, but also the feeling that his memories give him, the way that those memories surface in different moments throughout his life, either consciously or subconsciously, and inform the way he experiences something. When somebody has a really surprising response to something and you're like, where the hell did that come from? There's so much there, that paints that situation. It's impossible to tell, but Knausgaard does the best he can. And one of the things that he does or attempts to do, and he is quite aware that he cannot fully do this, but what he attempts to do is get rid of the post hoc, or sort of how do I say, the retroactive narrator. Okay, all of us have this retroactive narrator that takes what we have done in our lives and cleans it up and reorganizes it and then packages it as this very thoughtful motion that we've done, right? So places that you see this kind of thing in like Extremis would be a college application, where these 17-year-olds are like, my life. It's like, your life? Well, what's your life? You've been alive 17 years. You've basically eaten graham crackers and tried not to poop your pants, but failed over and over, right? And so that's one of them, is like, explain why you are what you are. And then the second one would be a job interview, right? Oh, why did you decide that shaving poodles was your calling? And what we do in those situations is we take this extremely chaotic narrative arc and we act like it was intentional, right? When in reality, we'll say, oh, well, I just felt in my previous job that I was just getting burnt out, and I just didn't feel like I was really connecting with the people anymore. And I realized I wanted to connect more, but not with people, but with poodles. And that's when I went into poodle shaving, right? And then the reality is, I would like, let's replay that as if it were honest. It'd be like, well, I had this other job, and somebody there bullied me constantly, but they'd always had plausible deniability. And I would go home at night and I would stress about them. And I would sometimes drink myself to sleep because I was so afraid of them, even though for some reason, like anyone that would see them, they would say, oh, they're such a nice person. But that's what makes me more scared. But I was too afraid to say anything about it, partly because of retribution and partly because I thought people wouldn't believe me. So eventually I told them that I had my family was moving to Latvia and that I was going with. And then I just left. They had a cake on the last day. Then I was at home for 2 weeks, desperate for money, and the only job I can find is shaving poodles, so here I am. Those are both the same person, but we are expected to repackage that, right? You wouldn't get that job if you told the second story. And so Nosgard attempts to, whenever possible, tell that other version of the story that is void of ego revisionism, that is bereft of this sort of ego defense that tries to justify why he did something or what the reason was. Because as you well know, viewer, you don't know why you do stuff. You don't know why you went down a path you went down. You have no idea why so many things. And in the moments of like real honesty, the real courage, you can say to yourself, just as a secret, you could lie to everybody else. You could lie to me, but just don't lie to yourself. And so you have this little secret time where you say, I actually think I made a mistake, right? I shouldn't have married that person. I shouldn't have gone to school for this. I actually shouldn't have sold that stock. I actually don't like hanging out with my kids. I actually don't want to visit my ailing mother. Whatever these things are, it's impossible to admit them when you don't have the opportunity to spend any time with yourself. This might seem like a bit of an overshot here, but I see these comments all the time with solo gaming that's like, yeah, I just have such trouble getting started. And I make a lot of videos on this. It's a very big concern of mine, because I really do feel like solo gaming is a very powerful tool for self-discovery, but more than discovery, I just think it's a good tool for spending time with ourselves, which most of us are very afraid to do. There are many reasons why people can't, that even who want to solo don't solo, right? So I'm not saying if you're having trouble like following through with solo that you need to like revisit your, relationship with your parents or something like that, right? It could just be you don't have time. It could be that you're interested but not that interested, etc. But I always do in these comments, I find something else here. I think it's really hard to get in the habit of hanging out with yourself, especially if you don't like yourself, and especially if you do a lot of stuff to avoid yourself. And solo role-playing requires that you hang out with yourself. And if you don't like doing that, I want you to know that I understand. It was not until my 30s that I liked myself. I did not like myself. I didn't think that I was cool. I didn't think that my jokes were funny. I didn't think that I was beautiful. I didn't think that I knew anything. I didn't think, so I had the belief, now invert that. I thought that everybody else was wrong about me. And if they were wrong about me, the reason was because I was deceiving them. And if I'm deceiving people, then that means I'm bad. And if I'm bad, that confirms all these things that I suspect about myself. Back to square one, I don't want to hang out with myself. And I do feel an emotion rising in me right now, not because I'm like repressing anything or anything like that. I mean, I've really done a lot of work to work through this kind of thing, but I feel emotional for two reasons. Number one is I grieve for that guy, like for Man Alone at 26. I feel so. I just wish I was there to help him. I know that doesn't make sense. I just feel so sad that he felt that way and wasn't able to understand who he was, because I really like him, and I wish I can go back and help that, iteration of me to understand that the reason you don't think you're good at anything is because you're measuring yourself against people and things that you don't want to do. You don't care, right? Like, it's so funny now. Every once in a while, I'll see somebody younger, like, trying to run the same hustle, and I'll just be like, bro, you're not fooling me. Like, you don't like that stuff. You're not interested in that stuff. Nobody could possibly be interested in that stuff, right? So I feel that emotion because of that. I also feel emotion because I really feel for anyone who maybe is experiencing this now. Is you just feel like you don't like yourself very much. And the hard thing about that is there's literally nothing that I can say or anyone could say to make you feel better. It's your struggle. You have to go through it. And if you are a person who deals with this, then you're a person in the low lands, right? You're in the shadow of the world. And down in the shadow, you're very suspicious of people that are like floating up top, right? If this resonates with you, sometimes I see these like really positive signs around the city I live in. That's like, you are beautiful. And I take a great delight in being like, yeah, you think so? Then why do I look like this? And just do like my worst troll face and be like, I am ugly, right? And it's I don't actually think I'm ugly, but although maybe that's why I hide my face. I think I am resistant to that kind of thing because it's so much more complicated than just like brainwashing yourself. You have to go through it. You have to go to the place that you don't want to go. Okay. And it's really hard to figure out how to do that. And if you're someone struggling with that, then you've probably looked up a lot of ways to do it, and none of them seem right because it's your struggle. You have to figure out how to do it. And those of you who have been through this and have worked through these things, I think you probably know as well as me or better, when somebody is looking for guidance or support, I'm so willing to give it, but there's part of me that knows that I can't give you the one thing you actually want, which is like a roadmap. You want a roadmap, do this, then this, then this. So I can't do that, but what I will say is that I believe that solo gaming provides an opportunity for you to discover some of the tools. And one of the ways I think would be good for you to figure out what those tools are is I want you to do something. Now, normally when somebody asks me to do what I'm about to ask you, I want to throw up because it is part of the self-care regime. You know the self-care regime, right? People that talk about like caring for yourself, but they actually are just like people who endorse or support you in doing sociopathic things to other people so that you can have like more free time for yourself to go on TikTok. These people, it's like, you need to do some self-care. Okay. It's like, question, self-care guru. My best friend is going through a divorce and they keep calling me crying, and I just like don't know what to say. And honestly, it's like making me depressed. And it's like, hey, thanks, depressed in Denver. What you want to do is you want to delete your friend's contact and then block his phone and then never speak to him again so that you can get busy caring for yourself. Some self-care. Yes, that is sociopathy. So I understand that this is going to feel like one of those self-care moments, someone from HR coming around and saying, okay, before this mandatory optional meeting, we're all going to do some coloring. Hey, we're serious here at Intertrobe LLC, but we also know how to have fun. And deep down, we're really just all kids, right? And what do kids like? Coloring books. And I always want to be like, man, uh, please stop. Please leave me alone. Stop doing. I know what the deal is. You're a person who smiles for a living, and I know that you have to like click a button to destroy my life. So, how about this? How about instead of coloring, you just tell me what new thing you want me to do? Tell me when the deadline is for it to be done. Look at again. There it is. Some balloons, some coloring books. And number 3 is just tell me what my punishment is if I don't do it. We can do this mandatory meeting in 7 minutes. I don't want to sit around and color with adults. Okay. But hey, we live in like the sort of the regime of the corporate diaper. So I want you to find a coloring book or just find something online that you can color. And I want you to print it out and put it in front of you. Now, little backstory. This specific coloring book I inexplicably got from my mother for my 40th birthday, and I very much love my mother. However, sometimes I wonder if she knows who I am after the age of 8 because, number 1, I am colorblind, and so coloring's always been a tough venture for me. Number 2, I don't like coloring books, and I'm not 8 years old. And number 3, she should know that I would not really take very well to any classic movies coloring book that states Whiplash is a classic. Now, hold on, don't get me wrong. Whiplash rules. That movie is awesome, but a classic, it's a little too soon, don't you think? And more than too soon, I got some here. Yeah, Eternal Sunshine, maybe one day classic. I don't know. La La Land, a classic? No. This movie needs to be like memory hold. It needs to never have happened. Anyways, that all said, that was a very kind gift. And I will say this, and this is the reason I pulled this one out. I'm sure that whoever did the art for this did not choose these. They just, got a sheet that said what to do. Their way of drawing is so inviting for coloring. Like, look at these. I don't know what it is about these, but how bad do you want to color that? It looks so appetizing to just like fill this in. Okay, so artist, you rule. Publisher, come on. Young Frankenstein, yes, good, fine. Classics, I mean, Godfather's not even on here. I mean, Interstellar, I have an Interstellar like framed print. A classic came out like 8 years ago. Anyways, I want you to find a coloring book that does not infuriate you. And I want you to get some stuff to color with. And just stay with me. I want you to color the entire picture and do not do anything else until you're done. Obvious disclaimer, if there's like a grenade or rocket coming at you, or if there's like a red dot that appears on you and you hear someone saying over the radio, I have the shot, you may move. But other than that, I want you to sit there and color this until you're done. And hey, do a good job on it. Don't speed run it. Do a real good job. Use all the colors. Fill in all the Forrest Gump donuts. Okay? While you're doing that, I want you to notice 2 things. Number 1, I want you to notice all of the things that make you want to stop coloring for just a second to do. Oh, you know what? I know Man Alone says I shouldn't stop, but I just have to write this down so I don't forget it. Okay? Notice all of those things. All right? And then when you're done, go ahead and try as best you can to write a list of all of the things that you thought you needed to do. Okay. And if you want to, you can do them. All right. Now find a second picture, a different one, and do another full effort coloring. Okay. Do not stop until you're done. Obvious stipulation: if there is suddenly a plume of green mist around you, because somebody has introduced a sort of poison-based weapon into your household, you may move. But other than that, sit there, color until you're done. And this time, as you start, I want you to think about if you had a day or a weekend to do only things you wanted to do, what would you do? And I want you to especially think about things you've been meaning to do, but have not gotten around to it. Okay? And I want you to make a list. Okay? Easy mode is a list of 5. Normal is a list of 3. Hard mode is a list of 1. 1, 3, or 5 things that you would do if you had time to yourself. Okay? For me, my most recent list, I added Broken Shores by Alex T. This is a prime example of that. I love Alex T's work. Across 1,000 Dead Worlds, amazing. I think Alex T is a nuclear reactor of creativity. The production level of Alex is unreal, unparalleled. And I'm very happy that I was able to kickstart most recent project. Looking forward to playing that on here. But Broken Shores, I've wanted to play it so much, but something is stopping me. I intend to play it, but something always leapfrogs it on the list. And I can't figure out why, because a lot of times the things that leapfrog it, I don't want to do them as much as I want to play this. And so for me, this is one of the things that I would do if I had 48 hours uninterrupted myself. When you are done, you will have this list. So let's just assume normal. You have a list of 3. Okay. I want you to find time in which you can do any of those things you want, but it's all you can do. Okay? So obviously, like breathing, eating, creating waste, like all those things, obviously. But like, you are not allowed to check your phone. You are not allowed to look at your email. You're not allowed to listen to music. You're not allowed to listen to a podcast in the background. You're not allowed to browse Amazon. You cannot talk to anybody. You can do any of those things you want for the time, but you may only do those things. Okay? If you are a solo player, make one of those things a solo game that you've been meaning to play but have not. And figure out the time that you have. Okay? So if you're going to do a full weekend, which I know is not possible for everybody, set your clock for 48 hours so that you know when you start, other than like taking care of your basic needs, you are going to be doing one of those things, right? So when I do this, I like something that I can read, something that I can play, and something that I can create. All right. And that's it. And when you're done in the evening and you're like, all right, I've done it. Now let me sit down and watch some TV. No, you may only do 1, 2, or 3 the whole time without exception, other than sleeping, eating, and defecating. Right? You need to only do those things. And the reason is not because I'm trying to like put you on a dopamine fast. I'm not trying to like teach you a lesson. I'm trying to tell you that you owe it to yourself to do the thing you want to do. You want to do it. So go do it. You know what you have to do it? You have to do only that and nothing else. Solo gaming requires 2 things. It requires you to spend time with yourself, which can be difficult. and it requires you to not do anything else. That is why it's special. You can't solo game while you are on a phone call. You cannot solo roleplay while you're playing a CRPG on your computer. You can't do it while you're studying. You have to only do it. Okay? You can decide with the music thing. I know some of you are like, no music. For me, I find some music very, flow state, and some music is very disruptive and pulls my thoughts away. Your mileage may vary. So, if this is your first time trying something like this, give it 3 or 4 hours. But just do it when you can promise that you will only do that. If you really want to learn how to play a game and play it, give yourself 4 hours. Because you're not really going to understand what it's like to play Broken Shores until you sit down and you understand how to play it and you play it. Okay? If you only give this a half investment, you're not going to play it, and you're probably not going to enjoy it enough to the point that you want to play it again. But there is a sweet spot. Not with every game, but with many solo games. I'll see people pick them up and read through them and go, it's not for me. And sometimes, yeah, I can tell, right? If a solo game is like, in this solo game, you'll write your backstory and then roll a dice, and if you get a 6, you change the nouns to the verbs. And I'm like, okay, no thanks. But for a game like this, I'm not really going to understand what it feels like to play this until I play it. And in order to play it, I have to close some other windows. I have to close my phone. I have to close my TV. I have to close other people. And I owe that to myself because I want to do it. I want to play this game. And I want to enjoy this game. And I want to show other people how to play it. But I can do that if I'm making a video on it even. Like, I may make a video on it down the line, but this weekend, it's not this weekend, to be honest. I'm going to wait till BB's away for a weekend so that I don't lose my fresh time with BB. But when I do that, that's it. That's what I'm going to do, and I'm not going to upload a video on it. I'm going to play it. And in fact, probably one of the only downsides of this channel is that I just don't get enough time to play on my own. I still do, but just I don't have as much time as I used to. Okay. Some of you may have a hard time with part 1 or part 2. Part 1 is spending time with yourself. Part 2 is not spending time doing those other things. It has to be a pure singular investment. A couple of things, a couple of books. I don't know. Some people don't like books. Stop lying if you don't like books. Just say it. I don't like it. This is a good one. Self-Reliance by Ralph Waldo Emerson. I feel has some gems. This is a really crappy copy of, I hate these, like, it's like a Barnes and Noble one, but I got it like 20 years ago. And there are things in here that I hear anew. And it's like I've read it so many times, but then I just hear it in a different way and it activates something. The key to every man is his thought, sturdy and defying though he look, he has a helm which he obeys, which is the idea after which all his facts are classified. He can only be reformed by showing him a new idea which commands his own. I am not saying that you have to read Self-Reliance, but I think that this is a great book. Walden, Leaves of Grass, these are very good books that allow you to turn the camera inward on yourself. And really, there's an amazing movie going on there. It's better than anything that's on Netflix. That being said, I know a couple steaming piles of crap that are better than what's on Netflix. Another book that I would recommend is anything by Hermann Hesse. Damien is one of my favorites. Almost all of Hermann Hesse's books are about self-confrontation, about confronting a part of oneself that is not acceptable, that is not allowed, the shadow, and then integrating those pieces to become the full person that you are. Damien is good. Steppenwolf is good. if you have never read Herman Hesse, don't start with the glass bead game. Yeah, Hesse is very good. Owning Your Own Shadow by Robert Johnson. If you're struggling a lot with the stuff in terms of being with yourself and being okay with yourself and liking yourself, this book is very small, and I recommend it, especially for men. It has specific. I think anyone would benefit from this, but in fact, Robert Johnson has like ones that are specific for men and women, called He and She, and I guess now We. But I do think that the divorce of one's shadow for a man today is perhaps the most important slash most potentially devastating thing happening in our world is our distance from our shadows and our unwillingness to accept that. And so if we want to do work, if we want to make the world better, we can start by like owning our own stuff. This is one of my favorite poetry books by Hafiz. This is a Sufi master. Hafiz has a sort of, and now there's some criticism about this translation that Daniel Ladinsky took some liberties with things, but I don't know. Hafiz said this like thousands of years ago. I'm sure it's not that easy. It doesn't matter also. What I like about some of these poems is they are so brief, and they say so much, and there's like a sort of little trickster to Hafiz. There's a little bit where he's kind of like smiling because he knows you. And I think what I always enjoy about this is that it's like putting a token in a machine of like the projector in my head, because I don't know what some of those poems were about, but they activate something. Like it activates some gestalt image inside me that makes me feel a certain way. Scratching my back. Okay. You can think of Hafiz as a divine old dog who just keeps scratching his back on the moon. Oh, I don't care about your thoughts or what you have ever done. Just open up this book whenever you are sad, for I love the way you smile. You know, it's could be silly, could mean nothing. Some of these will definitely not connect with you at all. The Great Religions. Now, this is somebody, you really have to think about this. Hafiz, this like blows me away. And again, I've read some of the original ones that, or at least how they're sort of interpreted differently. This dude lived in the 1300s. Okay. He wrote this poem, The Great Religions. The great religions are the ships, poets the lifeboats. Every sane person I know has jumped overboard. That is good for business, isn't it, Hafiz? Like 700 miles away, there were just dudes getting like inquisitioned for saying like, hey, sometimes I, forget to pray in the morning. And they're like, all right, well, we'll just kind of make you into human s'mores here real quick. You can fill in whatever blanks you want to fill in there. Those are just some suggestions. I must give props once again to this suggestion that was given to me. GMs, solo players, anyone writing fantasy, please check this out. It's on Amazon. I'll leave that there in case you want to write down. If you can find the things you want to do the most and make a promise to yourself to only do those things, this is the last thing I'll say. When you are done with that and you succeed at that and you resist the urge to do just that one thing, I just have to, do a couple more of my dailies on my little phone game, right? I just have to leave a message for this person. Oh, I got to write this down before I forget. If you can commit to not doing any of those things for a day, you are going to do one of the most important things that you can do, something that I believe solo gaming does very best, is you are going to have a nice day spending time with you, who is a person that many of us, myself included, when I was young, I had no idea who this person was. I was afraid of them, and I hated them. And many of you are probably on, a path I've been on, maybe further along, and you don't feel that way anymore. But, and I noticed this, you when you're young, when I was a young man, you're going through these storms, right? These tempests of passion and fear and decision. And then the waters kind of settle. And the opposite thing happens is we're like, well, this is settled now. So I'm just going to like stay in this little area here because I know that like the waves are good here. And you occasionally need to like force yourself to go out into brackish waters. Brackish being my favorite, one of my favorite adjectives, because it's one of those adjectives that never gets used for anything other than one noun. You won't hear people being like, oh, I was having hot chocolate last night. It was such brackish hot chocolate. Anyways, you need to ford out into those brackish waters. And so maybe you need to lean a little bit more heavily on the creative side so you could pass down some things about solo role playing. But I think even if you're new to it, you're 50, you want to get back into it. I saw an amazing comment by someone the other day is like, I want to get back in. That's right. I shared it. They were looking for suggestions. And I have to say, you all are awesome. You gave such great suggestions. This could be an opportunity to find out like what your bearing is and to find out what you want to do. And so many of the things that I truly feel energized by, like BB has to wake. I'm not kidding. On the next pod, this can be confirmed, but BB has to wake up a lot of mornings and like bring me to bed because I love writing. I love reading about the stuff that I'm interested in. She has to come and get me to go to bed because I just don't want to stop. I spent 20 years just sitting and waiting for something interesting to happen. And, when I got older in the internet, I would just scroll and search for things. I never found shit. Not once. It was not until I went quiet and I played some games and I spent some time with myself that I finally understood what I like. And of course, the big conclusion of that, of what I like more than anything, is having a members only podcast. Right now on buymeacoffee.com/manalone, for only $3 a month, I think we have 14 spots left. You can get the early worm discount, which means $3 a month for the rest of your life. Once those other 14 spots go, still have a great price for regular subscribers, but it'll be $4 a month. We do a podcast every week. Just recorded one with Mr. 55 that posted tonight. We have some with Mrs. Manalone, aka BB, in the mix. It's only going to get better. We also post audio only versions of all these videos if you're someone that prefers to listen rather than watch. And occasionally I write some unhinged posts on there. We're going to have some different stuff available as time goes on. So please join. Hey, you made it all the way to the end of this commercial. My God, can you imagine if this was all like a ruse to get you to just subscribe to this? Oh, how like betrayed would you feel? If you don't want to subscribe, don't subscribe. I don't care. It's fine. If you do, that's cool. I can't wait to have unhinged conversations with you on the little message prompts. But if you're not into it, don't subscribe. Don't like. Don't follow. I don't care. But anyways, I think it's worth it. You're worth the amount of time that it will take to do the things you want to do. Often it's the things we want to do the most that we avoid because ... question mark. Why? Think about that. Why is that? Why is it that for some of you, the thing you want to do most is play a solo RPG and it's the one thing you can't figure out how to do? Why? There's a reason for that. There's a reason for that. What happens after that? What happens during that? What do you have to give up for that? What do you have to give up to do what you want? Hey, some people like would hear those words and think they're lines from like some sort of 1980s karate movie. Like, what will you give up to be the local Palisades suburban 17 and under karate champion? What will you give up? Yeah, I guess I'm saying that in a way. And I know it sounds pretty overblown to say it about solo RPGs, but like, what are you afraid to give up? There's something that you're doing instead of this. What is it? Can you let it go? Can you let it go? I don't know. Can you? I think you can. You're pretty cool. Anyways, bye.